Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. It's a DFS strategy video for the 2021 AT&T Byron Nelson. Now, before I actually get into the video, I'll remind you guys there are timestamps in the description below. Those timestamps can also be found on YouTube's progress bar. If you're on desktop, all you have to do is hover your mouse over the progress bar. You'll find the timestamps that way. If you're on mobile, you'll have to find the little knob on the progress bar and click and drag that up and down, but you will see timestamps that way. Use them at your own leisure. They're there for you guys. But a quick overview, what I'll be going over in this video, we're going to be looking at the SweetSpot score. We'll look at Time Pairings. Unfortunately, we don't have statement game picks that we're going to be covering. They didn't release them by the time I started recording. However, last week I said this exact same thing, and they released them just after. So it was kind of a timing issue. Timing issue here again. So unfortunately, I do not have statement game picks for you guys. We'll also be revisiting the buckets. We did that in the preview video yesterday. We basically did a whole overview of what to look forward to for this tournament. It's a brand new golf course if you didn't watch the preview, which means we don't have any course history, but we're going to be using tournament history, and we will be using the course history buckets, which really should be called tournament history buckets. But we're going to be looking at the bucket system because that's where we're going to find our anchor plays. And the entire purpose of this video is to hone in, narrow down our player pool, find our anchor plays that we want to build around to make lineup building easier. So that's what we're going to try to achieve in this video. We'll also be looking at grass stats. We'll try to figure out which golfers to avoid completely. These are bent grass greens, so that's what I'll be covering. And then I will use the optimizer at the end of the video to create some lineups just to see, some combinations I didn't think could exist. We'll see if that works out that way. So let's go ahead and get into this thing. The very first thing I want to cover is the SweetSpot score. I want to let you guys know how it's created just so you are aware. I am using all of these stats here from OWGR on to the right. So we're looking at the official World Golf Ranking, bent grass, both overall average. So this goes back to 2013, whatever the overall average is for these guys, for each individual. Their success rate to finish inside the top 10. Course history, again, this should be tournament history, so I can go ahead and try to, there we go. Tournament history, looking at bogey avoidance, although I don't really think that's that big of a stat in this tournament. I think this is going to be more of a birdie fest than anything. So bogey avoidance to me it really isn't that big of a deal. We're going to be looking at, these stats are going to look very similar, but they're colored a different way. So you guys know, and so obviously I know, this gray is recent form stats. So these stats go back the last 8 weeks. I'm looking at DraftKings average, recent form average, and scoring average. And don't mind the points you see on there. I'm trying to weight this as close to 100 as possible. So your best golfers are going to be closer to 100. It's just my own scoring system to do this. The better the golfer, or I should say the higher the score, the better that golfer is at that stat. And then this is season long, DraftKings average and scoring average. I add all those points up over in this column here for the score, and then I rank them accordingly over in this column. Now, I want to show you some things. If I were to get rid of, some of you guys might think this is repetitive. If I were to get rid of the DraftKings average for recent form, pay attention to the rank over here in the column. I'm going to let you guys determine how you feel about this. Obviously, I'm not going to recreate this, and we're not doing this live, so I can't get your opinion while I'm doing this. I'm going to keep the ranks as is, but I want you to see something if I were to remove some of these columns. So just pay attention to the ranks over here for these top 20 guys. We get rid of that. Bryson goes from 12 to 11. I think, actually, let's just remove some of these columns first. So we'll get rid of scoring average, and I'm going to get rid of bogey avoidance. And then I can hit back and forward. These golfers here remain relatively unchanged. Actually, Jordan Spieth goes from number 1 to number 3. Rahm goes from number 3 to number 1. When I remove those columns that I, iffy about. But Matsuyama and Berger pretty much stay unchanged. Actually, Bryson goes back to 12. If I were to go ahead and bring back bogey avoidance, do these scores change? No, they do not. Bring back another one. So scoring average, recent form, scoring average. Bryson goes down a little bit. Jon Rahm still stays number 1, which is interesting. Berger and Matsuyama still stay 2 and 4. And then when we switch this and we bring in recent form DraftKings average, that's when Spieth goes to number 1. DeChambeau still stays at number 12. Let's see, where are some other golfers that make some big changes? Is Mark Leishman one of them, I wonder? So he's number 4 right now. Yeah, he drops to 8, stays at 8, stays at 8. Sam Burns, though, I see that number fluctuating quite a bit. So Sam Burns, 21, still 19, 13. So, yeah, I mean, you guys can see what the scores are. I would, if you do care about the score and how it's going to affect how you're going to play golfers, obviously try to remember that. We have video evidence, so you can pause the video at any time, look at those scores, and try to determine. But I'm going to leave it as is. I want to include recent form stats. I did this a few weeks ago, and it had relatively good results, so I'm going to keep it here. But from here, what we're going to do is go into Time Pairings. And I actually had to cover this first because the rank formula is still in here. If I go and put a filter on this, it's going to error out. So what I have to do is copy and paste the values so it no longer has that issue. So we go ahead and throw this filter on. We have all the golfers in here, and we actually have it sorted by game number 1. So your earliest tee time to your latest tee time. And how I'm going to do this is basically I will be talking about golfers that are highlighted over here. If I were to scroll down, I'm going to be talking about the golfers highlighted here. If you didn't already notice, the reason that these are highlighted here is because every golfer in the tee time pairing is also highlighted under this game column. And how I highlight this is light green is your DraftKings average, so it's better than field average. Dark green right here would be both scoring average. Oh, I'm sorry, I should actually say this differently. Light green is DraftKings average, better than field average. Yellow is scoring average, better than field average. And dark green are both of those stats better than field average. I'm going to edit something really quick. There we go. Bothers me when those aren't like that. So anyways, we aren't going to be talking about many groups, many tee time pairings. There aren't enough that have all 3 of them together. So our very first group, Brooks Koepka, Sergio Garcia, and Cameron Champ. Now, I don't necessarily care too much for Cameron Champ. He's been all over the place. I don't trust him enough. But I do like Brooks coming back. I mean, we really don't know how his knee is. He did have a knee injury, if you guys weren't aware, not too long ago, that he had surgery for. I'm not sure, but at $9,900 for the quality of golfer that Brooks is, that's a pretty good price tag. And then Sergio at $9,000, probably a little bit more expensive than what I'm comfortable playing, but all 3 of them together should boost each other up a little bit. They all have the same type of shot shape, so I think they're gonna play pretty. I mean, it's gonna be nice in a group when you see the same shot shape, the one that you're trying to achieve. It just makes visualizing the whole very easy, very similar. You know, you kind of have a blueprint of how to do it, so it's nice that these 3 golfers are going together. And hey, if you like one or the other, I would definitely play. Do not hesitate in playing them. And by the way, that's what I should mention. As I go through these aren't necessarily my anchor plays based off of tee time pairings. For me, it's if there was a golfer I liked before looking at this, it gives me a little bit more confirmation. Or if they aren't showing up, or you know they aren't in a group that's good, that might give me a little hesitation, you know, to play them as confidently as I was going to before. But again, if they are paired up with people that I like, then I'm probably all in. So our next group, Bryson DeChambeau, Sam Burns, Mark Leishman. I really don't have an issue with any of these guys. Sam Burns just won not too long ago. Prior to his win, he'd been streaky, right? He'd been up and down. So that's probably something we still can expect from him. Just because he won a tournament doesn't necessarily mean, you know, he now has a taste of success and he's going to be successful for the rest of his career. That just, you know, that doesn't happen. So there's a little bit of caution for me playing Sam Burns. I do like him in this group with DeChambeau and Leishman. Actually, if I'm going to be honest, this group is very eclectic, to say the least. Mark Leishman, for right now, I don't have an issue with. I just have an issue playing Mark Leishman in, like, period. You know, he and Cameron Smith just won a tournament. Prior to that, I don't know how, like, what he was up to, what he was doing. If I look at the recent form page, Mark Leishman, a win at the Zurich. Okay, so he finished 5th at the Masters. So he'd been heating up. And then World Match Play, I don't really, or WGC Match Play, I don't really count that into recent form. It's a little bit difficult, trickier to try to figure that out. But okay, so Mark Leishman had been heating up. So I guess there really isn't any worry to play him. I guess there's always worry, but my worry is as strong as it is, it can be kind of calmed a little bit. So yeah, not a terrible group. They don't really necessarily play the same way, but hey, not terrible. Scrolling down in our next group, we have Ryan Palmer, Harris English, Nate Lashley. All three of them are under that 100 score that I always talk about week in, week out, which is nice. So obviously they all have good sweet spot scores. I do like Ryan Palmer. Ryan Palmer has the course record at this golf course. I think, that's not enough reason for me to play, but it's a nice reason to play him. And plus, he's in a group that I like. He also has buckets that I like. I think, Ryan Palmer is a great place to kind of anchor your lineups around. And I'll look at that a little bit later in this video, but I do like that. And Harris English, he is, since his victory at the beginning of the calendar year, he's kind of fallen off the map. Like, I don't know what to think of him. And Nate Lashley being $6,600. If you have been following me over the last couple of weeks, I've basically been saying I don't want to play anyone $6,500 or below $6,500 anymore. I'm going to try to concentrate my 6K golfers at that $6,500 and above. Nate Lashley's right there. So I like Nate Lashley. I like Nate Lashley for a multitude of reasons, but here we have one being in a decent group. So maybe that's enough reason for you guys to play him. I'll definitely be sprinkling in some Nate Lashley. And I think that's actually... No, it isn't. I was going to say that's it for our morning groups, but we have one more group. Taylor Gooch, Alex Noren, and Doc Redman. Doc Redman he was trending up for a while. And then last week, I think he missed the cut. But missing a cut the week before this tournament is not the end of the world. It's actually one of the better last week buckets. It's last week bucket 2. So yeah, he did miss the cut last week. As you can see, the 85 here under last week. But again, prior to that, he'd been trending up. And I really like Taylor Gooch this week. I actually like Alex Noren as well. The group together doesn't equal under 100 over here in the sweet spot rank, but they have very respectable sweet spot scores. So, like, I like Gooch, I like Noren, and I don't mind Redman. I'll sprinkle in some Redman. I'm not going to be heavy on him because I don't trust him. But that group altogether, not terrible. Scrolling down, that would conclude our morning group. So we have 4 groups that we talked about. Let's see if we have 4 or more here in the afternoon. Our first group, Jordan Spieth, Will Zalatoris, and Scotty Scheffler, all Texas natives. So is this a homecoming for all 3 of them? Are they all going to be comfortable? I know Scotty Scheffler and Jordan Spieth have played golf together. I think they played collegiate golf together. I'm not exactly positive on that, but I think that's true. Will Zalatoris, I have no idea if they have a connection whatsoever. They're all very similar in age. Jordan Spieth has 3 years on both of them. But the group is fantastic. The best group by sweet spot score, period, in this field. So I like the idea of playing 1, maybe 2 of these guys, especially if we go that 10K, 9K, 8, 7, 7, 6 model that I typically like to deploy week in and week out. Starting with Spieth and going either Zalatoris or Scheffler, not a terrible idea. Especially, they're from Texas. it all matches up together well. So I do like that. Scrolling down, our next group is Matt Kuchar, CT Pan, and Kevin Chappell. Now, Kevin Chappell has a scoring average that's better than field average, but not DraftKings points. And I'll be here to tell you, he's been kind of awful as of late. He's very, very volatile. And not in so much the way you want it to be. He misses cuts bad, or he just barely makes the cut. Like, that's not what we're looking for. We're always searching for top 10 golfers. I don't think it's Kevin Chappell this week. But when we get to the buckets, Kuchar's going to show up quite a bit. He's going to cross-reference a lot of buckets. He might be a good play just for the mere fact that, you know, he's a good bucket play. And I don't mind CT Pan. He isn't really the flashiest golfer, not really the most well-known golfer, but CT Pan's not a bad low 7K play. Going on to our next group, it's Ricky Fowler, Pat Perez, and Austin Cook. And I'm not getting paid to talk about this group. I am not trying to sell you on Ricky, but all three of them are better than field average in, you know, one or the other stat. So Ricky has a better DraftKings average than field average. Austin Cook has a better scoring average than field average, and then Pat Perez has both. To me, I don't think that really gels together all that well. Their sweet spot score combined is over 150, and that's primarily because Austin Cook is at 99. If you want to take a flyer on any of these guys, that's fine. You know, the group together, they could probably score pretty decently. If they can draft off each other, play off of each other, it's not a terrible play. But I bet you can find better. Going to our next one, we have Jason Day, Charles Howell III, and Patton Kizzire. Now, these guys all kind of live in that 20 to 30 range. Their scores together are under 100, and they are both better than field average in DraftKings points and scoring average. So, I mean, on paper, this group seems really good. I have no issues with CH3. I mean, his bucket scores are 2s or 1s. That's really good. Jason Day, he's kind of all over the place when it comes to buckets. I personally don't want to play Jason Day at a birdie fest. I always think Jason Day is better at a grinded out golf course, or a grinded out tournament. Anything closer to even is more his style. I think I'm gonna stay away from Jason Day. I mean, my ownership is gonna be very limited on him. But CH3 and Patton Kizzire, I think decent plays, especially both in the 7K range. We're gonna want to play some 7K golfers, so I have no issue with that. As we scroll down, do we see another group? We don't. So what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 groups in the morning, 4 groups in the afternoon. Surprisingly, we didn't get a John Rahm group, and that's primarily because he's playing with Sung Kang, who does not have better than field average on any of those stats, but together all three of them are actually under 100 when it comes to the sweet spot score. I like Rahm and Hideki together. I mean, I've always said Hideki is on his own island. It doesn't matter who he's playing with. But I think Rahm playing with Matsuyama, I think they probably complement each other a little bit here. And here's my reasoning. Rahm can get really quick with his golf swing. He already has a quick swing, but he's in control of it. But I think he gets a little, too quick. On the opposite end, Hideki, obviously not known for a quick golf swing, at least not quick tempo, very slow. Those things rub off on golfers. Now, at a professional level, maybe not so much. Not at the level that I play at, yeah. I mean, if you see a golfer who is hitting the ball really far, you're really trying to, swing harder with him. Tempo goes with that. I mean, tempo is one of those things that you may not think of, but if you see someone who's swinging faster than you, you swing faster. Or if you see someone swing slower than you, you tend to slow down your swing a little bit. And I think that's going to be beneficial I think it's more beneficial for John Rahm than it is for Hideki. So more reasons for me to play John Rahm. I like John Rahm this week, and I will definitely be playing John Rahm. Let's see, do we have any other groups? This seems like Fitzpatrick, Siwoo Kim, and then they get to be paired up with JB Holmes. That sucks. JB, one of the slowest golfers. I mean, he was one of the slowest golfers before his brain injury. And I say that because you might think he just became a slower golfer after his brain injury for reasons. But if you look back at at the match play he had with Tiger Woods, when he was really young, he was so slow. They even talk about it on the broadcast in like the, you know, the highlights. So I feel bad for JB, or I feel bad for Fitzpatrick and Siwoo Kim, but I like those guys. They're very good on the SweetSpot model. It's just they're paired up with someone not with JB Holmes. Let's see here. Anything else? I see Burgers with Wes Bryan and Ted Potter Jr. This group could have been highlighted if they weren't paired up with Ted Potter, but Ted Potter can actually get really hot. So I don't mind these two guys together either. Gim is with John Hunn, JJ Henry. Don't really care there. Westwood, Camilo. Camilo's not in a bad group. Thomas Peters is playing with Vincent Whaley and Michael Gellerman. I don't care for Gellerman, but I think these two guys together might be pretty decent. I do like Peters this week. A lot of people do, but he does show up inside the buckets that we're going to be choosing from. So I do like Peters. And yeah, I guess there really isn't anything else to talk about when it comes to this. So from here, why don't let's take a look at the summary. And here's what we're going to do. We are going to target the higher success rate buckets that have a higher projected, and we want to see the min be 1 or 2, or maybe even 3. And then those are the buckets we're going to anchor our lineups around. So the very first bucket is the one that I'm on. So 22% success rate. We only have, the other criteria here is trying to find buckets that have like 20 or under inside that bucket for this year, and that being greater than what we see on average per year. So obviously 11 is greater than 8, 22% success rate. That means good things. So what I would do, I've already done this, but I would go ahead, sort by this, or actually filter by this, and look at all my 3s, copy them over, and put them on this spreadsheet. But I've already done that up here, and you can see the buckets that I am choosing from. So I have all of my players right here. This is the player pool we'll be selecting from, at least for the anchor positions. But to come back here, so last week bucket 3s are a group that I want to choose from. I really don't care. So when we look at last week 2 and 1, you can see the projected amount is high, but look at how many golfers are in those buckets for this field. It's pretty high. Like, this is hard. This is like finding a needle in a haystack. So 3 out of 50. I mean, if we were dividing that, I'm trying to put myself on the spot. It's like 16. Like 16, 1 out of 16 is what we're looking at, as opposed to like 2.5 out of 11. That's 1 out of 5, basically. 1 out of 6. Yeah, 1 out of 5. So I am much more inclined to choose something from this, because the odds are just easier to find a golfer that's going to finish inside the top 10 than it would be from here. Like, this is difficult. Although the numbers are high, we're just not going that route. So with that being said, last week 3 we're choosing. I see 17.39, 3.83, and then 22. So we'll be selecting there. I did actually select Course History 3 as another one, I believe. Oh, no, I did not. So just Course History 2. Course History 3 is kind of it's very, very close. I am going to be playing some Course History 3 guys, but we're not going to choose them for buckets here. The next one we're going to is Recent Form 4s. That is a very high number of success rate, a high number projected, a very small number of golfers in that bucket this year. So that's a no-brainer. This is definitely going to be a bucket we're going to find golfers inside the top 10. And then right below that is the same thing with last week 3s. Decent projected number, high success rate, small bucket or total of golfers in that bucket. And that's basically, those are our 4 buckets we're going to be looking at. Last week 3s, Course History 2s, Recent Form 4s, and Recent Form 3s. The other buckets just have too many golfers in them, so we're not talking about them. But there are some that I think are important to play, like, you know, Course History 1s, or even last week 1s. One other thing I want to mention, I think next week and going forward, somebody already mentioned in the comments for my preview video, but I'm going to also say here too, ask you guys, actually, let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to change the ranks here that you see based off the success rate. It only makes sense. How I'm currently doing it is it's going based off of the frequency that we see inside the top 10. So it's the total amount of golfers that fall under this range for the buckets that we see here. Based off the 6 buckets for these categories, whatever the highest frequency is, that gets your number 1 rank. So it's going to go by success rate later on. But for this week anyways, you know, last week 1s and 2s, regardless of how big the numbers are, we're going to see golfers inside the top 10. So it is what it is. We will always see, when it's volume driven like this, we will see golfers finish inside the top 10. So anyways, the 4 buckets that I chose, I already grabbed the golfers from them and I put them right here. So you can see course history 2s. We had 22 golfers in that bucket. Yeah, 22. Recent form 3s, we have 19 golfers in that bucket. Recent form 4s, only 9. And last week 3s, we have 11. So, and this is, again, just to save time, instead of going through here and sorting, you know, filtering out and then sorting them, I've already done the work. So we don't have to do that. Here's one thing that I want to add to this process. Actually, I'm not gonna be able to do it right now, but I want to eliminate golfers from these buckets if their grass stat is not better than 5%. So let's go ahead and talk about grass stats. I guess the first thing that I want to do, I'll show you what the best bent grass golfers are in the field. We have Jon Rahm, who's one of my favorite golfers for this tournament, that is, for this week. Hideki Matsuyama's second. Will Zalatoris only has 5 events under his belt, but he's averaging a 26th place finish and finishing inside the top 10 at 40%. So that's pretty good. Jordan Spieth, a good 10K golfer. Jason Day's up there. I don't really care for. Kuchar, Fowler. I like Kuchar, don't care for Fowler, but we see Brooks, Daniel Berger, Scotty Scheffler, Brandt Snedeker shows up, so a 7,400 guy, not terrible. We also have Garcia, Fitzpatrick, Charles Howell III, and Thomas Pieters. So another good reason for me wanting to play Thomas Pieters. He has a 20% clip of finishing inside the top 10 on bent grass golf courses. So that's decent. Rafa is an interesting play. I'll give you a little hint. He does show up in the optimizer, I think within the first 2 lineups that I create. So RCB, interesting consideration at 6,700. And then we have Lee Westwood, Bill Haas, and Kevin Chappell. I can sort from top down. Jon Rahm has a 58% clip of finishing inside the top 10. Like, that's insane on bent grass golf courses. I think overall he has a 50% clip of just finishing inside the top 10, period. But 58% on bent. So bent is more of his preferred grass. This year he's averaging 8.8 for his average finishing position. Overall, dating back to 2013, he's at a 17.37. Missing the cut is also a good omen at this tournament, so more reasons to play Jon Rahm. And then you can see how the other guys shake out right here. We do see Bryson up there. I don't know if we actually talked about him in the overall, but he's there. Ricky Fowler, 7,700. Like, he has a good track record on bent grass greens, so perhaps it's a good reason to play him. But the big thing that I want to do is this. Let's go ahead and take a look at all of our buckets. We're going to look at course history 2, and we're going to eliminate some golfers from these buckets that are at 0%. So Sepp Straka, unfortunately, he's off the list. Nobody else is. Everyone else is pretty safe. So Sepp Straka, where are you at? What group did, or what did I select first? Course history 2s. Did I not copy him over? Oh, he's right here. So Sepp Straka, he is gone. We are removing him, moving this up. So we've just, all we did was eliminate one guy from this 22-man group, which isn't exactly what I want, but hey, sometimes it happens that way. Our next group we're going to select is the recent form 3s. Let's go through that. And we have a few 0%, including Camilo Villegas, which is unfortunate. Actually, we see a bunch of people down here. So here are our golfers that we're going to remove. Josh Teeter, Bryce Garnett, Vincent Whaley. That's another guy, but he only has 3 events under his belt. So you can provide the argument to me that, you know, everyone starts here sometime or somewhere. So 3 events. If he gets, you know, a top 10 here, his top 10 percentage goes to 25%. So, you know, I could give you a pass, or we could give him a pass. That's fine, but I'm just gonna go ahead and remove him from that. Let's see. This is how I want to do this. I'm gonna open this back up and we'll hide this column. So Vincent Whaley, let's see here, Josh Teeter to Eric Van Rooyen. So we're gonna go ahead. These guys, I should actually put Sepp Straka over here. Let's see, can I find him quick? There he is. So Sepp Straka is coming down here. These are the guys we are not playing. I'm going to go ahead and remove them. So Josh, Bryce, Vincent, Lewis, Van Rooyen, and Camilo. And I'll explain why I'm putting them down here. I'm basically going to reduce their exposure levels on the optimizer. Like, I do not want to play these guys more than once. So that's what I'm ending up doing here. Next bucket, we're looking at recent form 4s. And only Tyler McCumber. So McCumber will come down here. We'll go ahead and get rid of him. And then move on to the last one, which is last week bucket 3s. And we have Satoshi Kodaira. That's the only guy. So unfortunately, Kodaira is gone as well. That's nice because that trims some of these guys down quite a bit. And when it comes to grass set, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Okay. Let's go ahead and determine some of our anchor plays. Now, last week, what we ended up doing is we try to cross-reference. You know, we have a course history bucket here, 2 recent form buckets, and a last week bucket. So these are all, you know, I could tell you this is bucket. Never mind. You guys should know these are different buckets. So course history bucket 2, different than the recent form buckets, and also different than the last week bucket. There are their own individual categories, so don't get them mixed up. But if you see golfers across here, so Scotty Scheffler shows up twice. He shows up in the course history bucket 2 and the recent form bucket 3. They cross-reference. That's good. However, like I said last week, the only person to finish inside the top 10, so this is the Wells Fargo Championship, that cross-referenced. All these golfers that have the font in red, they cross-referenced, meaning if you look at all the recent form buckets up here, that's recent form 4 in this column here, recent form 2, recent form 1. Ricky Fowler, let's just use him as an example. He was in the recent form 1. He was also in the course history 1. So he showed up twice. He cross-referenced, and that's why his font is red as opposed to black. Just to give us an idea, like, hey, these guys are showing up a bunch. But here's the other thing. Everyone that's highlighted in this dark red, if you watch the review video, you would know these guys finished inside the top 10. Do we see any crossover? We only see one, and that's Keith Mitchell. He's the only guy out of, you know, all the guys that crossed over to finish inside the top 10. So it's kind of telling you, don't get married to that idea. As much as I have, you know, provided the crossovers, don't get married to it. It's not something to really, you know, care about that much. But Keith Mitchell does show up once again. He shows up in 3 buckets. 3 of our anchor buckets, Keith Mitchell shows up. So he can easily just cross off all of those buckets for us if he does finish inside the top 10. which, I mean, if he does that, you know, we want at least one guy from each of these buckets to show up. Well, he's going to have course history bucket 2 covered, recent form bucket 3, and last week 3, meaning the other golfers in those 2 buckets, or 3 buckets, I should say, kind of rendered useless. I shouldn't say useless, but if I were to tell you at least one will finish inside the top 10 of each of these, or if I were to say only one will finish inside the top 10, Keith Mitchell just crosses off all the other guys. However, let's not be foolish. We know that there can still be top 10 finishes from this group, from any of these buckets. But yeah, I just want to let you know Keith Mitchell shows up quite a bit. Doesn't mean he's going to be, you know, successful, but hey, he shows up. We have Thomas Peters showing up in course history 2, recent form 4. Leishman shows up in those same buckets. Kuchar, surprisingly, course history bucket 2, recent form bucket 3. And we already talked about Keith Mitchell. Aaron Wise in course history bucket 2 and last week 3. And I mean, that's all that I see, or that's all I saw before I came on. If you see more, let me know, but I don't. So, oh, I suppose Scotty Scheffler. Forgot about him. Yeah, those are the guys, but this is the group of guys that I want to play. I should actually also say I'm probably going to pass on Blixt and Brown because they are under 6,500. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'm pretty sure Blixt and Brown are under 6,500. Yeah, so Brown, Walker, and Blixt. So I'm going to put Walker down there as well. I know a lot of people kind of like him this week, and he does show up quite a bit. But yeah, so now we have our course history bucket 2 down to 18 guys. Recent form bucket 3 down to 13. Recent form bucket 4 down to 8. Last week 3 down to 10. Now here's the thing. I want to play one out of these buckets at all times. So I'm going to always select one guy from this bucket, one guy from this bucket, one guy from this bucket, and one guy from this. And again, some of these guys can count at, you know, more than one, or I should say they can count for one from more than one bucket. So again, you know, Thomas Peters can cross off course history bucket 2 and recent form bucket 4 just by showing up inside the lineup. And that would count for me. I'm playing at least one in each of those. Here's the thing I want to do is try to figure out my ownership levels before I do anything. And I started doing this on my optimizer and I did not show you guys. So this will be a new segment. I'll just throw this into the timeline, is determining ownership. So here's what I've done. I already put the max ownerships here in this column, but let me explain to you how I got to those numbers. So if I go back to the tournament spreadsheet and I take a look at the summary, I'm recording all of these success rates for each of the buckets. And for any golfer that also relates with that bucket, I am recording that, I'm adding it to a ownership model. So last week 3, we know Bryson DeChambeau is a last week 3. So I'm just going to use him for this example. So 22.81% success rate. That's a good number. When we look at his other one, he's a recent form 1. So I'd come down to recent form 1. Look at this number. It's 9.89%. So that's kind of low. Looking at course history 4, 4.69. That's also low. If I show you on a different tab, ownership, and we look at Bryson, you can see those numbers, 4.69, 9.89, 22.81. So I have those all right here in these columns. We don't have a last year score. And then my ownership level here is all based off of salary. If I think, you know, the salary is good, and this might need a little revisit, but I don't mind it. And in column L, it's taking all of these together and it's averaging them. And then applying a 75% kind of penalty. Like I'm trying to make the ownership a little bit lower. So that's why if you're doing your math at home, you'll see that it doesn't equal the number that I'm showing, but this is our total. I have a min and a max, so that's looking at whatever the minimum ownership that shows up and the maximum. And I also have a median over here, and then I averaged the median and average together because it does change. I know this is busy work, but what ends up coming out are the ownerships you see here. So my highest ownership guys are Bryson, Jon Rahm, Jordan Spieth, Hideki Matsuyama, Matthew Fitzpatrick, Mark Leishman, Luke List, Aaron Wise, Charles Schwartzel, Keith Mitchell. So obviously Keith is one of our guys. And that's it. Those are the only guys 20% and above. So, you know, when we look at some of these guys that I've highlighted, Bryson is one. So Bryson's right there. I'm going to go ahead and just throw him there because he's a high price guy. Jon Rahm is another. He's at 29%, like that. Jordan Spieth is another. We'll put that there, no problem. Taking a look, Hideki Matsuyama is another 29% guy. And then it drops down to Matt Fitzpatrick at 9,500. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that over here. Now, these don't really matter. Like, don't pay attention to what the columns are right now. Matt Fitzpatrick's 29. Leishman, Mark Leishman is another 20% guy. Where is he? 29%, $9,200. Scrolling down, Mark Leishman, Thomas Peters is 29, Luke List, Aaron Wise. So Thomas Peters, Luke List, and Aaron Wise. I think those 9 golfers are going to be kind of my anchor spots. The ownership just matches out for them. And I actually should say this. The ownerships that you see here, this goes down to 8K. If I go to the ownership, this matches their maximum values. So this is all of the max ownerships of those golfers. Like, I did not change it whatsoever. So Lee Westwood, when you take a look, his max is 8.8. So when we look at all of the columns of ownership here, 8.8 is all that he gets. So that's my max ownership for Lee Westwood. I'm not going to play him more than 8%. And this is a little bit of an experimentation, but I want to see if this works out because I do want kind of an ownership model to go with everything as well. Daniel Berger isn't more than 9%, as you can tell. He's got some really low bucket numbers. Like, that's not good. Jason Day is right there. That's a relief to me because I don't want to play Jason Day. Just does not work out. It's not good whenever I play him. So those are the ownerships that come with this. I did already run 10 lineups, but we can go ahead and do it again because I'm going to show all the same guys. But yeah, that was my ownership model. These are the 9 golfers that I really like that I want to build my lineups around. So I'm not sure if I want to do that 30-30-30-10 thing that I've done in the past, but if I were to do something like that, it probably would be something like this. I know that was kind of a curveball. But yeah, let's put Jordan here. And it might be something like this. I might put Bryson with Thomas Peters, Rahm with Leishman, Jordan with Fitzpatrick. But more than likely what I'm going to do is it's just going to be a mix and match. So this will be, you know, my elite anchor positions, and these will be the JV guys. And you know, these 4 golfers will be in all of my lineups. These 5 golfers will mix and match with the 4 here. And I think that's a decent way to go about this. So I don't mind it. Let's go ahead and build some lineups and then get out of here. 44 minutes in? Sure. All right, so number 1 lineup, when I run this optimizer based off of that, the SweetSpot score, and I should actually mention something else. I forgot to do this. I have all my rules in as well. So all my conditionals. I have my mins right here for last week 1, last week 2. I don't have a last week 3 because we have seen 0, but maybe I should put last week 3 in. If those are the buckets I'm going after. Last week bucket 3. Yeah, I didn't have, so 22%. We Yeah, let's put a 3 in there. Oh, you know what? Since they are all at 1s, I'm not going to make sure we see a 1 in there. So let me go ahead. And then course history, 1, 2, and 3. When we look at our course history buckets, 1, 2, and 3. Come across here, what we see, our projections are pretty high. Success rate is pretty decent. It's going to be difficult to try to find the right golfers out of those buckets, but that's the course history. And then recent form, I actually have 2 for recent form 1 and 1 for recent form 2, which don't actually follow these buckets, which we're going to obviously have to change as well. But I see these numbers here, and that's kind of why I went off of them. So maybe I put a 1 for recent form 3. Let's see here. Yeah, that's fine. Actually, let's do it for the video. I just want to select the ones that I've already talked about. So 1 there, recent form, what? 2 and 3? 3 and 4. Recent form 3 and 4. Okay, so recent form 4, recent form 3, course history 2, last week 3. Let's run that optimizer again. I don't know how I feel about this. I guess that's fine. You know what? No. I'm gonna go ahead. So my salary conditions down here, 9 and 8K. That's another one that I went with. I should have mentioned that too. Maybe I just keep 8K. I don't put 9 down. Let's put it this way. I know this. I do want 1 8K, 2 7s, and 1 6.5. So let's go ahead, run that optimizer, see what it looks like. Changes a little bit, but not by much. We have Hideki, Scotty Scheffler, Keith Mitchell. Obviously, he shows up. Alex Noren was one of those guys too. It's a good group. I like it. So we'll save it. Run the optimizer again. Let's see what other lineups we can get. Spieth, Palmer, Peters, Uline, Piercy, and KH Lee. I like KH Lee, so works for me. Again, this is following the bucket logic that I kind of already went with. It's selecting golfers from the pools that we went with. Here we go. Leishman and Rahm. Those were 2 guys I was choosing before. We have Schwartzel, Sebastian Munoz, Doug Gim, and Nate Lash. That's not a terrible lineup either. Next one is Daniel Berger, Fitzpatrick, Kuchar, Howell III, Ricky Fowler, and JJ Spawn. Of course, Ricky's there. I'm liking this. Like, a lot of these lineups are actually, they're pretty decent. We have Hideki, Leishman, Siwoo Kim, Russell Knox, Sepp Straka, Danny Lee. Obviously, we didn't want to play a lot of Sepp Straka, but you know, it's okay if he shows up once. And maybe I just do one more lineup. Spieth, Fitzpatrick, Mitchell, Gooch, Hoagie, and Tyler Duncan. I like that group a lot as well. So that's kind of where I'm at, and those are the golfers that I'm anchoring around. It would be those 5 for sure. You can obviously, you saw that with the percentages that I have, but these are the pool. Now, if I count all of these guys together, I'm sure you guys will laugh, and that's totally fine. We have 49 golfers. I don't know if we actually have 49. Well, it wouldn't be 49 combined golfers because some of these guys overlap into other ones, but it's going to be around 40, right? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 golfers there. Do we have anyone that doesn't over here? No. So we just, what, -6, -7 because of Keith Mitchell. So I already forgot the number. 49. So 42. 42 would be in my pool. That's fine. That to me is okay. I could build lineups out of this. I don't have to, but I mean, some of these guys I'm only gonna own once. Like Sung Kang, Sean O'Hare, I don't care to own them more than once. Same with Danny Lee or Rory Sabatini. This group probably is smaller. Like if I were to trim out, well, let's do that. I'll trim out some of the guys I don't care for. Don't care for Han. Actually, this is how I'm going to do this. We're going to go like that. Don't care for Han, Sabatini, Lee, O'Hare, King. Don't care for Adam Schenk. Don't really care for JJ Spawn. I guess that's it. So I didn't really get rid of a lot. We have these guys, 32, 33, 39, 41, 42. Yeah, so I didn't really get rid of a lot, but those would be guys that I would trim out of this. But yeah, this is it. This is the player pool. Ran some lineups for you guys. I don't have anything else to give you guys. So hopefully you guys do well and we see a lot of green screens. I'm still in the process of creating the website. I already saw PGA Championship had salaries drop for DraftKings, which is kind of unfortunate. Like that's a bummer. It's not a bummer. Don't get me wrong. It's not a bummer. I just wanted to be more prepared for it and I wasn't. So that stinks. But hopefully I'm toying around with an idea of how to do videos this week. I might do more than the typical 3 that I do. I might just do a video for each bucket. If you think that is painful, just tell me in the comment section. Say please don't, which it's totally fine. I don't mind. I can stick to the 3 video process that I have. But I am curious to see if I create individual tournaments or individual videos, how that would go, like how successful those would be. Yeah, the website, there are so many options to build a website, and I'm so picky when it comes to how I want it to look and what I want to actually put on there. So I'm not sure if I'm actually going to get it out for the PGA Championship. If I'm being honest with you guys, I don't want to publish something that's half done, you know, because that's reputation that you have to kind of think about. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe, just maybe, I'll get on a roll one of these couple days and really put something together that I absolutely like. So there's a possibility, but it's kind of looking bleak right now, if I'm being honest. But yeah, that's something we'll see. We'll look forward to. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the review video or in a PGA Championship video. We'll see. All right, see you guys later. Bye.